preservation of stones, first of all? And in which type of stones buildings do we need to go for preservation? Uh, First of all, if you know that there are heritage buildings, the buildings which are old buildings, which are monumental buildings, which need to be preserved. Such buildings have been mostly constructed, their masonry has been constructed either in the stonework, or it has been constructed in small brick work. Now, uh, those heritage buildings which are hundreds of years old, constructed in stone, or any monumental building, or for the stones, that has to be done for such type of stones. So there is a need for preservation of such stone masonry work which has been done in old heritage buildings. Now, most of the, as we discussed at ASCII date myths, so there are very less buildings which are being constructed in stone masonry, but the stone masonry is being used for cladding purposes now, and for the purpose of facade jo bahar se that we provide for decorative purposes or ornamental purposes to the masonry work. And there again, you would be needing the preservation for such type of facade works if the stone ornamental work is being done. Now, there are many places in the hilly regions where the stone masonry is still being used. So you need to preserve such type of stone masonry for uh, heritage purposes again. And it's being used now, the stone masonry work, rather than in the plains, because in hills you have stones available quite abundantly. So this is the need for stone masonry work to be preserved. There comes the need for, because we need to preserve this for the future generations as well, because such type of structures are acting as uh, structures of national importance. They act as structures of which come under the UNESCO World Heritage, and they also come under that. So it's then uh, under the preservation programs of the UNESCO, because it's the need of the human civilization to preserve its history. So what happens to the stone, first of all? How does it decay? That's the first question. How does the stone masonry decay? The answer to this question is that it decays by various methods. It could be chemical method, or it could be physical or mechanical methods. These are the degradation methods for any stone masonry or the stones. So most of the chemical and the physical reactions, sorry, the physical actions that happen on the stones, and then the chemical reactions that happen within the stones, ये irreversible होते हैं. एक बार degradation होगी, it will not come back to its original phase. It's very difficult for it to come back to its original phase. So degradation is a continuous process at the same time, because decaying of any material is a continuous process. So you need stones which have to be durable, first of all. Now, for construction, if you are using, which we discussed last time, stones which have got very less compressive strength, first of all, like laterite, if you're using such type of stone, you will first of all not get any strength, and it will decay faster as well. So you need to have stones which will remain for a long. We use such types of stones in construction, जो कि ज़्यादातर igneous rocks से बनते हैं, और metamorphic rocks. Origin of the stones should be igneous or metamorphic. Now, if you use stones which are sedimentary, which we told last time, then they will degrade quite quickly. So you will not be using such types of stones in your construction. Now, what are the physical faults that happen in the stone? First of all, there could be fissures happening, fissures or cracks happening in stones. Now, what are these fissures and cracks which happen in the stone? These are, for example, you have a stone. It will start cracking, developing a small fissure first, then it will start cracking, and then finally it will start breaking off. Chips of it will start falling off. Now, why does this happen? Why does the fissure in the stone happen? Because there could be a physical agent or a mechanical agent which is responsible. For example, there could be uh, freezing and drying actions happening. You have first freezing happening, and फिर उसके बाद drying हो रही है, and then it's similarly wetting and drying processes. Sorry, freezing and thawing and wetting and drying processes could be happening. So freezing and thawing means पहले freeze हो रहा है, फिर it's expanding a little as the temperatures rise again. या ऐसे हो रहा है कि you have wetting and drying happening. Pehle it's stones are put in the water, and then it's again under the sunshade. So there could be rain, and then there could be sun. So these actually lead to development of fissures, and there are fissures already in the stones from their origin itself. So we even if we classify stones based on their origin, we'll find out that sedimentary rocks से जो stones बनते हैं, they already have layers. तो वहां से fissures उनमें already develop हो गए होते हैं because they are formed in layers. So fissures could be one of the action of deterioration of the stones or the cracks happening in the stones. And then there could be fissures also due to erosion of the stones. The stone could be eroding. There could be erosion happening of the stone, and then you could also be having other physical faults in the stone itself. Like for example, if the stone is in contact with metals, अगर आपने उसमें डबल बार्स यूज किए, आयरन क्लैंप्स यूज किए, ये सब मेटल्स के बने हुए थे जो हमने लास्ट टाइम डिस्कस किया. वी यूज डबल बार्स, वी यूज आयरन क्लैंप्स विद इन द स्टोन वर्क. वी कुड आल्सो बी यूजिंग रॉड्स. अगर हम रॉड्स भी यूज करें, इनमें क्या होता है, ये सारे मटेरियल्स इनमें रस्ट आ जाता है, दे डिटीरिएट विद टाइम. तो वो जो रस्ट बनता है उसका वॉल्यूम ज्यादा होता है. Volume is more for the rust material. For example, you have a stone masonry like this. This is a stone, and then you have an iron rod over it, and then you have another stone block. So there is an iron rod in between this one. What will happen to this is that you will mostly get this iron rod becoming, as the rust develops, वो pressure develop करेगा क्योंकि volume इसका बढ़ जाता है. And once it leads to the development of pressure, so these start cracking. So the cracking happens due to that. Secondly, there is discoloration happening. जो rust बढ़ेगा तो ये stone work, it will become discolored. So that could also be a reason for that's a physical reason also for the stones getting deteriorated, the cracks happening in the stone. It has nothing to do with the stone itself. There is no chemical reaction happening in the stone, but there is a physical pressure being exerted from the rust. जो उसका वॉल्यूम बढ़ जाता है उससे फिजिकल प्रेशर एक डेवलप हो जाता है, and that is leading to the deterioration of the stone. Then water is an agent itself for deterioration of stones. So we discuss about erosion due to winds. There could be freezing, thawing related to the erosion. There could be wetting, drying, and then you have metal clamps and others which could lead to corrosion and rust development, और उससे volume बढ़ेगा. And then this is one more, water की वजह से भी deterioration हो जाती है, because water is an agent which plays, उसमें soluble salts हो सकते हैं and many other chemical agents हो सकते हैं जो कि then it acts as a mechanism जिसकी वजह से water is a mechanism जिसकी वजह से there could be deterioration of the stone. Now water physically or mechanically, how does it deteriorate? इसमें जो chemical agents and others, they are playing a part. वो तो they will seep into the stones and then उसकी वजह से उसमें chemical reaction हो जाएगी. लेकिन water खुद भी उसमें बहुत सारे other things could be there, like there could be sand particles and others जिनकी वजह से abrasion हो रहा है. एक sand particle water में है, for example you have a stone masonry and then वो एक there is a water stream or something like that continuously flowing, or a drain, water drain. You have made the water drain of the stone masonry, what will happen that there could be sand particles, they will keep on abrading the outer surface, उसको remove करते रहेंगे, टकराते हैं छोटे छोटे particles with the stone masonry और उसको abrasion कहते हैं. तो वो abrasion becomes an agent of deterioration of the stonework. So abrasion is done by different mechanisms. Abrasion could happen due to sand particles which are suspended within the water. It could happen due to the wind. Wind maybe you could have sand and other particles within the wind, and wind itself, when it strikes a particular surface, it leads to deterioration because it's striking with a pressure. So because of pressure, it leads to the development of abrasive forces onto the surface. So these are the physical processes by which the deterioration of the stone masonry happens. Then you could have certain compatible materials which could lead to deterioration. There could be certain compatible materials which could lead to deterioration. And what are these compatible materials? For example, you have the sulfur dioxides. Most of our stone masonry work is made up of calcium products are there. So sulfur dioxides, or what they do actually, they combine onto the surface, forming calcium sulfates onto the surface of the. There is no reaction inside it. At the surface itself, it's forming calcium sulfates. Calcium sulfates are formed on the surface of the stonework. For that, what do you need? What happens? जिसकी वजह से वो सफेदी जो आ जाती है, you must have seen in the brickwork as well. And efflorescence, we call that. So efflorescence, I'm getting the spelling wrong. Probably this is the spelling. So efflorescence, which is the white color के patches बनते हैं. This also happens on the stonework. So once that happens, the efflorescence happens, there could be then further spalling. Spalling is again a type of cracking which is happening of the stonework, which could be facilitated due to this. So secondly, now about the there could be areas within the stonework जहाँ पर joints आ रहे हैं. For example, you have balconies. You have staircases. जहाँ पर आपको you could have sill levels. Certain cornices जो कि बाहर प्रोजेक्टेड होते हैं, जो कि हमने लास्ट टाइम डिस्कस किया. सिल लेवल जो कि खिड़की से नीचे होता है. बैल्कनी जो कि एक्सपोज होता है बाहर के एटमॉस्फेयर. देयर आर जॉइंट्स विद इन द स्ट्रक्चर, विद इन द स्टोन वर्क, जहाँ पर स्टोन्स आपस में मिल रहे हैं. तो ये एरियाज एक्सपोज्ड एरियाज है. तो यहाँ पर आपको ज्यादातर स्टोन masonry will face a lot of exposure, और वहाँ पर you would always find more deterioration happening in such areas. Then there are surfaces which actually lead to the decay of the stone through natural weathering processes, which include you have temperature change. Happening. तो अब जो surfaces ज़्यादा expose होंगे towards the atmosphere and towards outside, और जहाँ पर stone work is exposed, you will have temperature changes there, and temperature changes. And what are the temperature changes? You will have long-term durability problems then if there are more temperature changes in. Look, for example, there is a place जहाँ पर -20 डिग्री सेल्सियस से 60 डिग्री सेल्सियस टेम्परेचर चेंज हो रहा है. So such places will have a lot of expansion and contraction of the stone masonry work happening. जहाँ पर टेम्परेचर -20 चला गया तो वो पहले contract हो जाएगा, +60 चला गया तो वहां पर फिर वो expand हो जाएगा. In such places you will have a natural weathering process is quickly happening, because it's a lot of contraction and expansion of the stone that is happening. So then there are, I told about the wind abrasion, and wind abrasion में pollutants भी होते हैं. Now that is contributing to chemical reactions then. तो उसमें अगर सल्फर डाइऑक्साइड एंड कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड बोथ टुगेदर, जो कि एसिडिक गैसेस है, sulfur dioxide and carbon dioxide, they are both acidic gases. And what do these acidic gases do? First of all, sulfur dioxide से बनता है आपका these are sulfuric acid बन जाएगा आपका. तो sulfuric acid, if you have a look at sulfuric acid, क्योंकि अब stone will have calcium inside it in different forms, calcium carbonate and other forms. तो जो मैंने ऊपर कहा, calcium sulfate will be formed. Now the calcium sulfate could be formed within the body of the stone as well as on the surface. So calcium sulfates will be formed mostly, and these lead to degradation, efflorescence on the surface and degradation inside. अंदर से cracks develop हो जाती है, छोटे छोटे micro cracks हो जाती है. So you also have the second one, which is the carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide से एक ऐसा गैस एसिड बनता है जो कि उतना खतरनाक एसिड नहीं है. इट्स कार्बोनिक एसिड, जो कि कार्बोनिक एसिड कहाँ पर पाया जाता है? Any one of you who has idea? Dangerous, because it's not that dangerous even for our stomach, so it's not that dangerous for the buildings as well. But over a period of time, क्योंकि the masonry keeps on, or carbon dioxide is freely available in the atmosphere, and it will keep on acting for years and years together onto the surface. तो तब जाके ये carbonic acid actually then makes calcites on the surface of the stone, और जिसकी वजह से as well as dolomites. And these are calcium and magnesium calcites, the dolomites. तो ये जो surfaces पे hard surface एक और layer चढ़ती है, it's a powdery mix now that is found there at the surface. So it is depositions from the, ये अंदर से leach out किया होता है इसने stones से materials. So stones are degrading with time, even due to carbon dioxide in the atmosphere itself, which is not a pollutant as such. So with the increase in the greenhouse, you will find that more and more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, more and more, not only stones, other materials as well becoming degraded with the period of time. So then they also discolor the surfaces, they give black patches onto the surfaces, और जब वो फिर पानी के साथ और मिल जाते हैं, then they make dirty looking orange and other patches onto the surfaces of the stonework. So stones अब decay कैसे होते हैं? एक तो natural है आपका, pollution की वजह से भी हो रहे हैं, then you also have miscellaneous. ये सारे contribute कर रहे हैं towards the degradation of the stones as of today, जिसमें natural आपका ground water भी आ सकता है. अगर आप you want to clean the surface of the stone and you are using groundwater, उसमें भी आजकल salts बहुत है, because we have used a lot of fertilizers, and fertilizers की वजह से mostly in the plains, for example in the Punjab region and others, you have a lot of salt there and within the groundwater. So that is leading to, that natural groundwater is leading to the degradation once you are using that for cleaning of the surfaces or something like that. Then there is water in the air due to rain, की वजह से the water could come and जिसकी वजह से डिग्रेडेशन हो जाएगी. पानी खुद एक एजेंट बनता है, रेन वाटर, क्योंकि वो rain drop falls at a speed, so that itself is acting as a degrading agent. Then there is wind, which I told you. Then there are chemicals there within the atmosphere that's leading to degradation. Then there are agents of abrasion like sand particles and others, which are in the air as well as in the water. So, and they are acting as abrasion mechanisms. Then I told you about there could be origin में ही वो उसमें physical faults पहले ही हो, fissures हो, and then there are temperature change, freezing and thawing, and drying and wetting. These are all leading to the ये सारे together they make up the degradation mechanism for stones जिनकी वजह से एक stone decay हो जाती है. So and then I told you about the pollutants जिसमें sulfur dioxide की वजह से sulfuric acids they happen to be formed. And then there could be certain miscellaneous things like stone cleaners and others. You could be having them. These are, I'm just discussing, these are the decaying agents. Yes, then there is one more, which is the living organisms itself. I'm coming to the, that's our second, how do we prevent against this? These are the decaying mechanisms. First, I'm talking about the decay mechanism. The living organisms themselves are acting as agents of decay. For example, if you have the lichens, which are, and then you could have bacteria which produce these acids if within the, and they will be always present, the bacteria will be present within that stone masonry work. And then there is a growth because of organic growth. Then there are algae and others which are formed in the cool places within the stone masonry work. And then you will always see wo between the mortars penetrate karte and then within the stone work, and it finally leads to deterioration and the decay. So they are also contributing to that. And then you must have seen people usually grow vines or climbers. Glass cool, yeah, you have these climbers जो कि green color के वो climbers onto the surface से चढ़ते हैं on the old structures you must have seen mostly. And those climbers actually, so उनके जो, because they have to hold onto the surface, they penetrate their small roots into the which are actually grips into the stone work, and that leads to the deterioration of the stone masonry work. So you also have to prevent those living organisms or the living mechanisms. Then there could be there is आपने पेड़ बिल्कुल stone masonry work के सामने तो गया, there could be a branch falling there and branch से पानी आ रहा है, टपक रहा है onto the surface, or there could be the branch itself is going into the there are certain these small vegetables like you have जिसमें आपके ये आते हैं cucumber and others, and they usually grow onto the surfaces, they rise onto the surfaces. And you must have seen if this rise onto the stone masonry work or on the brick work, they will always lead to their deterioration as well, because they will be contributing certain acids as well into the and they make a mechanism for water transport onto the surface. So the surface becomes damp and then it leads to the deterioration of the surface. So there could be small twigs that could be now how do we preserve? That's the second question, which is the question being asked by somebody. Pumpkins, cucumbers, pumpkins, all that. Yes. So what are the mechanisms of preservation of stonework and that we have to discuss? So first of all, the first thing is you have to eliminate the cause. For preservation, आपको पहली चीज ये हमेशा करनी है that you eliminate the cause. Now what is the cause of the prevention? So कहते हैं ना prevention is better than cure. तो उसके लिए what do you do? You always eliminate the cause of the, for example, living organisms, you remove those living organisms from the surface of the stonework. If you have agents like water coming from the leakage and the other things, then remove that water leakage. If you have fissures already there, just seal those fissures. And if you have materials, areas like these, stonework in joints, balcony, staircases, if they're exposed, try to hide them such that they do not remain exposed. Uspe barish na gire. And then and you could have things like other things you cannot, for example, prevent. For example, there is pollution in the air, you cannot prevent that at your own places. If there is temperature change, you cannot prevent that. But things which you can prevent, you should first of all identify the cause and try to prevent them. So prevention is better than cure. So that's the first thing that you always do in any type of preservation. Right now we are discussing about stone, we'll be discussing about the other. जब हम बाकी materials पढ़ेंगे तो उनकी भी preservation पढ़ेंगे हम. How do you preserve those materials? So you first identify the cause, that's the first thing. Second thing, once you have eliminated the cause, if you can eliminate the cause, well and good, done. If you cannot eliminate the cause, then what do you need to do? You need to clean the surface first. That's the first thing in preservation. You need to clean the surface. So you need to brush it off. Agar dirt us pe padi hai, to dirt ko aap brush off kar do. If you have algae growth happening, these lichens growing on it, you have bacterial growth happening, all these things, then you need to first of all eliminate all these bacterial growths. And for that you can use chemical treatments later on, but first you can just use a cleaner, which is the water is the best cleaner always, and rain water always cleans. If the surface is exposed to the rainwater, it will clean. But at the same time, raindrops, which I told you, fall at a speed and they lead to deterioration. So you do not want the raindrops to fall at speed. Plus, you do not want it to be always wet. That will lead to its deterioration further. So you can clean the surface by water if there is a dirt there, but you can use certain treatments to clean it as well, like borax and others, which and वो आप पानी में डाल कर, then you can just clean the surface of the dirt and the other these organic growth. That's the second thing that you do. Third thing, once you have done this, then you apply the surface coatings. Now this could be done for old as well as new structures. Surface coatings में आपको क्या क्या आता है? You have waxes, you have oils, you have paints. For stones, paint is the easiest one. What you just have to take a paint and just brush it off, but it leads to change in the color of the stone. And if you do not want to do that, and paints will usually change the color of the stone. If you do not wish to do that, then you do not use paints. Otherwise, paints application is quite easy for surface protection of the stone. And mostly you never want paints to be used over the stones, because not only does it change the original color of the stone, you want to preserve the original color of the stone. It's better than to use oils. Now, there are various types of oils that you could be using, and linseed oil is the most common you can use for stone preservations. So what is done, that this oil is heated a little bit, and then you can just apply it by a brush or a spray onto the surface and of the stone. If the stones are new, you can just drop the stone in the oil and keep it there for a certain period of time, and then just remove it, let it dry out, and then apply it as a masonry. But it's always better to apply it after you have done with the masonry work, because only the surface of the will be exposed to the atmosphere, which will decay. So it is the surface that you need to oil it off. Now there are various things like waxes and others which you can use. People even go for the varnish coatings that they do on these wood. They also even try those, but it's not a long-term sustainable thing that will stick onto the stones. So it's better to use oils like linseed oils, and waxes is the best thing that you can use onto the stones as preservatives. जिसमें बहुत सारे waxes come, which are petroleum jelly products actually. So what is done, the wax is, क्योंकि वो wax is a solid thing, you take wax and then heat it up completely until it becomes liquid. उसको फिर apply करते हो onto the stone, and then it dries up. And it's good because it will penetrate within the when heated, it will penetrate within the stones as well. And once dry, it remains in that condition, and it also gives a very good surface finish to the stone masonry work, the waxes. Oil से क्या हो सकता है, जो linseed oil and others, they leave black patches onto the stones, and if the black patches remain onto the stones, it's not good because it will create uh, in the future it will create those problems of what you call as bad surfaces on हो सकती है आपकी. So that you do not want those black patches onto your stonework. And if it's heritage structure, you never want it to be becoming undecorative. You want to retain its original जैसा वो था. But so wax is a good thing in that respect because it will leave no surface this discoloration, and it will, what it does, it shows a fresh surface. It उसे एक लगती है जैसे fresh surface है, it's cleaned, it's somewhat like that. So then there are various chemicals that you could be using. Barium hydroxides, is one. You have fluorosilicates, these ones. You could be using lime water. These can also be used in not only in cleaning but then also in protecting as preservatives for the stones. You also, so what is done, you rub the surface, you remove the dirt, then you remove all the organic growth. So your first step always has to be rubbing the surface. Second step would be cleaning organic growth. Which needs to be removed. उसमें branches, trees and other things, they need to be cut. Trees and branches अगर है तो they need to be cut. अगर कहीं पर drain आ रही है तो drainage needs to be checked. तो वहां से leak तो नहीं हो रहा है, so you need to check that. The drainage needs to be checked and refined actually. And if there are any open joints, you need to seal them properly. उसके लिए silicone sealants आते हैं. You need to seal them, the open joints and others. You will rejoin, the session is closing.